Kunle woke up to the faint gray light of dawn filtering through the curtains of his small apartment in Alimosho, Lagos. He yawned and stretched, expecting another ordinary day, but something was terribly wrong. As he rolled onto his back, he felt an unfamiliar weight on his midsection. His hand brushed against his stomach, and his eyes flew open. Welcome to Afro Tales TV, your home for rich, exciting, and inspiring stories from around the world. Today's story will touch your heart and keep you hooked till the very end. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss any of our amazing stories. His stomach was enormous. Overnight, it seemed to have swelled into a round, hard dome, like a pregnant woman's belly. Kunle's heart began to race. He sat up in bed, throwing off the light sheet, and stared down at himself in disbelief. The t-shirt he had worn to sleep was now tight and stretched over a bulging belly that definitely wasn't there when he went to bed. What is this? Kunle whispered to himself, voice trembling. He gingerly prodded the swollen belly. It was firm, not soft like mere fat. It felt heavy, attached to him in a way that was undeniably real. He could feel the skin stretch taut and even see faint lines, almost like stretch marks, at the sides. There was a light fluttering movement inside, as if something alive were in there. A bolt of panic shot through Kunle. He flung his legs over the side of the bed, standing up unsteadily. A wave of dizziness hit him, and he had to grab the wall for support. This can't be real. It must be a nightmare. He shut his eyes tightly, willing the bizarre sight to disappear. Slowly, he opened them and looked down again. The bulge was still there, protruding from his thin frame. He looked like a man who was at least 7 months pregnant. "This is impossible," he mumbled, fear creeping into his voice. "I'm a man. Men don't get pregnant." His mind raced, trying to recall the events of last night. Nothing unusual. He had eaten a light dinner of eBay and egusi soup, watched the late-night news until PHCN took the light, then gone to bed around 11 p.m. He had been perfectly fine. There was no pain, no sign of anything wrong. So how could he wake up like this? Kunle stumbled to the small mirror on the wall. The reflection that stared back at him was foreign. He saw his own face, dark skin beaded with sweat, eyes wide with shock. But below that, his lean body was disfigured by the grotesque bulge of his stomach pushing out against his thin shirt. He looked like someone who had swallowed a basketball, or more disturbingly, like an expectant mother in the late 3rd trimester. His hands shook as he lifted the hem of his t-shirt. The skin of his belly was stretched and smooth. He noticed the faint dark line running down the center, a linea nigra, something he'd only seen on pregnant women before. Kunle's breath caught. A memory surfaced. The last time he'd seen something like that was on Amaka, when they had talked about pregnancy. But that was absurd. No, he muttered, panic rising. This had to be some bizarre medical condition or a cruel prank. Perhaps he had a severe case of bloating, but so big, overnight, it defied reason. He pressed both hands to his stomach and felt a responding subtle kick against his palm. Kunle yelped and stumbled back onto the bed. "There is something alive inside me." He could not deny it now. He felt it. It wasn't gas or fat. It felt exactly like a baby moving. A sob of fear escaped his throat. "What is happening to me?" Kunle fumbled for his phone on the bedside table, nearly knocking it over in his urgency. He needed help. Was this something a doctor could even explain? Who would believe him? But he had to try. Hands trembling, he dialed the first person he could think of, his best friend, Tunde. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Kunle paced the room, one hand on his belly as if to steady its weight, the other clutching the phone to his ear. Finally, a groggy voice answered. "Hello? Kunle? Do you know what time it is? Tunda's voice was thick with sleep. Kunle glanced at the clock on the wall. It was just past 6 a.m. Tunda, please, I need help, he blurted, voice cracking. The urgency in Kunle's tone cut through Tunde's sleepiness immediately. What is it? Are you okay? I don't know, Kunle said, words tumbling out in a panic. Something is wrong with me, physically. I need to get to a hospital. Please, can you come? There was a rustling sound as Tundi presumably sat up straight. What happened? Are you sick? You sound really bad. Kunle looked down at his distended abdomen and felt another flutter inside. His pulse was thundering in his ears. He swallowed hard, trying to steady himself. How could he even say it aloud? It sounded insane. But he had to tell someone. My stomach, Kunle began. It's swollen, very swollen. I woke up and it's like I'm pregnant. There was dead silence on the line for a moment. Then Tunda spluttered. What are you talking about? Pregnant, Kay? How can... I know it sounds crazy, Kunle interrupted, voice high-pitched with terror. But I'm serious, Tunde. My belly is huge. It looks like I'm carrying a baby. I can even feel something moving inside. His voice broke on the last word, and fresh tears welled in his eyes. Tunda was silent again, processing this unbelievable information. Finally he spoke, sounding more awake and alarmed. Okay. Just calm down. I'll come right now and take you to the hospital. Are you in your apartment? Yes, please hurry, Kunle whispered. I'm on my way, Tunda said firmly, and hung up. Kunle dropped the phone on the bed. His entire body was trembling. He quickly changed out of his tight t-shirt into a looser button-down shirt, but even that could barely contain the bulge. He threw on a pair of baggy trousers with an elastic waist, thankful that it still fit under the belly. With each movement he felt the weight and strain in his abdomen. It was real, not a hallucination. He gingerly made his way to the living room and sank onto the sofa to wait for Tunda. The minutes felt endless. His mind whirled with fear and confusion. Was this some kind of extremely fast-growing tumor? But then what was the movement he felt? Could it be parasitic? He had heard of bizarre medical cases where a twin could carry their sibling or something outlandish, but a man spontaneously developing a pregnancy overnight? As he sat there, he noticed other symptoms he hadn't earlier in his panic. His lower back ached, and he felt an odd heaviness in his chest too. A thought flashed by. Pregnant women often have tender breasts, but he was a man. Surely that part of this curse or condition wouldn't apply. He shifted uncomfortably, and a wave of nausea rolled over him. Kunle clamped a hand over his mouth, shocked and frightened by the sudden urge to vomit. Morning sickness? Before he could get up, headlights swept across his window as a car pulled up outside. Moments later, he heard pounding footsteps on the stairs. Tunde didn't even bother knocking. He burst through the door which Kunle had left unlocked, eyes wide with concern. Kunle? Where are you? Here? Kunle called weakly from the sofa. Tunda strode in, dressed in a t-shirt and jeans hastily thrown on. His eyes found Kunle on the sofa and then widened as he took in the sight of his friend. Even under the loose shirt, the round protrusion was unmistakable. Tunda's jaw dropped. Jesus Christ, Kunle, he gasped, stepping closer. You weren't joking. Kunle managed a shaky, humorless laugh. Why would I joke about this? Tunde gingerly extended a hand towards the bulge. Can I? Kunle nodded, shifting the shirt up slightly to reveal the swollen belly. Tunda lightly placed a hand on it, then recoiled in shock as a slight movement fluttered against his palm. Oh my God, he whispered. Something moved. This is impossible. Tell me about it, Kunle murmured, voice filled with despair. Please, Tunda, take me to the hospital. Maybe they can figure out what's wrong with me. Yes, of course, Tunda said quickly. He swallowed, trying to stay calm for both their sakes. "Let's go. I'll help you down to the car." Walking was an ordeal. Every step Kunle took made him feel off balance. Tunde hovered by his side, arms out in case he stumbled. Luckily, it was early morning, and most of the neighbors were not out and about yet. They managed to get to Tunde's car with only a curious glance from the elderly woman sweeping her doorstep next door. She frowned at Kunle's belly and crossed herself, but said nothing. Tunde drove as fast as Lagos traffic at dawn would allow, which fortunately was not too bad yet. They headed to a private hospital in Ikeja that had a good reputation. In the car, Kunle was breathing heavily, one hand pressed against his belly as it cramped slightly. He was terrified of what they would find, but more terrified of not knowing. At the hospital, Tunde explained the situation in hushed tones to a triage nurse. She looked at him skeptically until her eyes dropped to Kunle's midsection. Then her eyebrows shot up and she immediately called for a doctor. Within minutes, Kunle was whisked into an examination room. He found himself lying on a hospital bed, heart pounding, as a doctor named Dr. Williams prepared to do an ultrasound. Dr. Williams tried to maintain a professional demeanor, but he couldn't hide the confusion on his face. He had already done a quick physical exam, pressing on Kunle's abdomen, listening with a stethoscope, and exchanged baffled looks with the attending nurse. "Mr. Adeyemi," Dr. Williams said slowly, using Kunle's last name, "you say this swelling appeared overnight?" Kunle nodded vigorously. "Yes, doctor. I was completely normal before. I just woke up and it was like this. I know it's unbelievable." Dr. Williams pursed his lips. "You haven't taken any unusual substances? Steroids, drugs, any herbal concoctions?" The doctor was clearly grasping for any logical explanation. "No, nothing like that. I hardly even drink," Kunle replied, voice shaky. He was on the verge of tears from anxiety. "Doctor, be honest. Have you ever seen anything like this?" The doctor exchanged a quick glance with the nurse, then answered, "No, I haven't. We'll do some tests. The ultrasound should give us an idea of what's inside this swelling. It could be a tumor, though the speed of growth is alarming, to say the least. Or maybe a cyst. We need to see." Kunle nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. A tumor, a cyst. Those were at least medical conditions he could understand. Something human, something explainable, perhaps even treatable. He braced himself as the nurse lifted his shirt higher and tucked a towel at his waist. When she applied the cool gel on his bare, stretched belly, he shivered. Dr. Williams placed the ultrasound transducer on the skin and moved it around, eyes glued to the monitor. At first, the doctor's expression was one of focused concentration, but as he continued to slide the probe and study the image, his frown deepened. "What is it?" Kunle asked, unable to bear the suspense. He tried to crane his neck to see the screen, but it was angled away from him. The doctor did not answer immediately. He adjusted a dial to get a clearer picture and went over the same area again. The nurse watching the screen put a hand to her mouth, eyes widening. "Doctor?" Kunle prompted, voice now trembling. Dr. Williams took a slow breath. "There appears to be a sac of some sort. It's fluid-filled and—" He hesitated, blinking as if he couldn't believe what he was saying. "There are tissues, possibly an organ structure." He trailed off. "Please, just tell me plainly," Kunle pleaded, feeling cold all over despite the stuffy air of the room. The doctor removed the probe and looked at Kunle with an almost apologetic expression. "This is highly unusual," he admitted quietly. "From the ultrasound it looks like, well, it resembles a womb. A uterus." Kunle felt the world spin. He gripped the sides of the bed. "A womb? Inside me? I'm a man, I can't have a womb." His voice came out in a choked whisper. I know," Dr. Williams said quickly, looking as unsettled as Kunle felt. "Biologically, it's impossible. But the image, that's what it looks like, complete with what could be a fetus-like structure. I even think I saw something like a heartbeat. At that, Kunli's vision blurred, and for a moment he thought he might faint. The nurse hurriedly dabbed his forehead with a cloth, murmuring soothing words. A heartbeat? A fetus? Kunle echoed. A rising hysteria bubbled up inside him. So you're telling me I'm pregnant? He almost gagged on the word. I am not saying that, Dr. Williams replied, though his tone lacked conviction. We need to run more tests. I want to do an MRI and get a better look. This could be some kind of teratoma. Those can have hair, teeth, even organs, and can sometimes mimic a fetus on scans. It's extremely rare, but that might be an explanation. Kunle nodded numbly, only half hearing the doctor's theory. Teratoma or not, he couldn't shake the horror of the situation. An hour and several scans later, he sat in a private waiting room with Tunde by his side. The MRI and blood tests had been done, and they were waiting for results. Kunle was now dressed in a hospital gown, as his own clothes had been set aside. He kept looking down at the impossible swell of his midsection and then away, as if hoping that when he looked back it would vanish. It didn't. Occasionally he felt those subtle movements within, and each time his heart pounded with dread. Tunde placed a hand on his shoulder. It will be okay, man, he said softly, though his own eyes were red as if he'd been on the verge of tears. These doctors, they will figure something out. Kunle drew a shuddering breath. If this is a nightmare, I want to wake up. I can't do this. He buried his face in his hands, trying to hold back a sob. Tunde squeezed his shoulder. You're awake, unfortunately, but you're not alone. I'm here, and will involve everyone we need to. Even pastor, imam, babalawo, anyone. If it comes to that, he added with a shaky attempt at a smile. Kunle just shook his head, a tear escaping down his cheek. Thank you, he whispered. Just then, Dr. Williams returned, holding a file and looking more confused than ever. A second doctor accompanied him, an older woman with kind eyes, perhaps a senior consultant. They both sat down opposite Kunle and Tunde. Dr. Williams cleared his throat. Mr. Adeyemi, we have the MRI results, and frankly, we are baffled. The older doctor spoke gently, leaning forward. The MRI confirms that there is a uterine-like structure in your abdominal cavity. It appears attached to some of your organs in a way that's not typical at all, and inside it, there is a fetus-like entity. Judging by its size on the images, it's approximately 7 months along, if we were to compare it to a normal pregnancy. Kunle felt faint again. 7 months? How could something reach that stage in a single night? This is impossible, he murmured, voice shaking. The female doctor gave him a sympathetic look. Medically, yes, it is. We don't understand how this could have formed overnight. It's beyond any scientific explanation we have. We checked your hormone levels, and they are elevated in ways we usually see in pregnant women. High levels of HCG, progesterone. It's as if your body has been in a long pregnancy, but it all manifested at once. So what can you do for him, doctors? Tunde asked anxiously. Dr. Williams sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. To be honest, we are at a loss. We could consider surgery to remove the mass, but given its connection to vital organs, it's extremely risky. And the fact that it appears to be sustaining a life, that complicates things greatly. If we treat it like a pregnancy, well, that is uncharted territory, as there's no precedent for a male patient carrying a fetus. Kunle closed his eyes, tears leaking out. Please, doctor, I don't care what it is. I just want it out. I can't live like this, he pleaded, voice breaking. The two doctors exchanged troubled looks. The older doctor said softly, We understand how distressing this is for you, but we also must be cautious. If this were a normal pregnancy at 7 months, We couldn't just remove it without significant risk to both the life inside and to you. And if it's not a real fetus but a tumor mimicking one, it's still very dangerous to remove without proper planning. We need to consult with specialists and understand more. So you're saying there's nothing you can do right now, Tunde said, frustration creeping into his tone. We need time to consult with colleagues, perhaps even abroad, Dr. Williams answered. We have never seen anything like this, and we want to ensure we do the right thing. Time was something Kunle felt he didn't have. Every passing minute with this thing inside him was torture. But what choice did he have? The doctors were basically saying they'd never dealt with such a situation. If they tried surgery now, he could die. If they waited, what then? Was he supposed to go into labor eventually? The thought made him shudder violently. At that moment, a soft knock came on the door, and a nurse poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, doctors, she said quietly, but his mother is here. She was very insistent on seeing him. My mother? Kunle echoed in surprise and a jolt of dread. Oh no. How had she found out so quickly? Before he could say anything more, a petite middle-aged woman barged into the room, worry etched on her face. Her head was wrapped in a colorful Ankara scarf. It was indeed his mother, Mama Kunle, and the look in her eyes was a mix of shock, fear, and anguish. Kunle, oh my God! She cried, rushing to her son's side. Mummy? Kunle started, shame and distress flooding him as his mother gaped at his condition.